Good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Tim McGuinness. I'm a director of the Society of Citizens Against Relationship Scams. We are a government-registered crime victims assistance and crime prevention nonprofit organization based in Miami, Florida, supporting scam victims and victims of financial fraud worldwide. I want to thank you all for joining us today. This call is being recorded, so you'll be able to see it on our social media pages, YouTube channel, and websites. The video is copyright 2022 SCARS, so thank you for joining us. And I have with me today another SCARS director, Debby Montgomery Johnson. Welcome, Debby.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
All righty, so we're going to begin our presentation now. All righty. All right, this is another one of our SCARS webinars. And to begin, a little wisdom from Dr. Seuss. The more that you read, the more things you will know. The more that you learn, the more places you will go. Important SCARS notice: the views of the speakers or presenters are not necessarily the views of the Society of Citizens Against Relationship Scams, Inc., an incorporated nonprofit organization. SCARS is not responsible for the accuracy of any information provided during this presentation. The speakers are solely responsible for their comments and content. As I mentioned, presenting this webinar is myself, lots of stuff, and Debby Montgomery Johnson, the SCARS director, entrepreneur, motivator extraordinaire, author, publisher, military veteran like myself, and a victims advocate and supporter. Today we're going to be talking about money mules and other victim challenges that are related to that. So, don't be a mule. Let's move things around a little bit. All righty. So, what is a money mule? Well, a money mule is someone who transfers illegally acquired money on behalf of or at the direction of another, such as a scammer. Money mules have become quite a challenge over the last decade, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. So, what is a money mule? Criminals recruit mules to move money electronically through bank accounts, move physical currency, or to assist in the movement of money or other assets through a variety of other methods. In fact, the United Kingdom just announced that they arrested, yesterday, I believe, a money mule in Northern Ireland who had been responsible for moving about $25 million physically on dozens and dozens and dozens of trips back and forth to Spain and then on to other locations from there. Once received, the mule will typically wire the money into a third-party bank account, cash out the money received, possibly via several cashier's checks or into a cryptocurrency wallet, converting the money into virtual currency, convert the money into prepaid debit cards, send the money through a money service business like Western Union, MoneyGram, Zelle, or others, or conduct a combination of these actions depending upon what their handlers, the criminals, ask them to do. Now, money mules are inherently dangerous as they add layers to the money trail from the victim to the criminal actor. They're also increasingly the backbone that criminals depend upon to get the stolen money. Today, money is typically transferred through cryptocurrency, where victims can be enticed to utilize that mechanism. But a lot of times, it's so difficult for the scammers to receive the money directly that they will convert victims into money mules, or they will actually hire unsuspecting people to play that role. And we're going to talk about that as well. So what is the difference between a mule and a mole? Debbie, what do you think?
I always thought that a mole is an underground type of a thing, and a mule is a donkey that carries stuff on their backs.
Well, okay. Now let's leave the farmyard and travel into the world of transnational criminology, crime. A mule is a person who does work on behalf of a criminal. It could be, for example, transporting money across borders, etc., or engaging in financial transactions to support the criminals through receiving and then resending money. There's also a thing known as a parcel mule, people who receive packages and then resend them to the criminals or to the forwarding entity that will send them on. A mole, on the other hand, is an actual criminal themselves that are embedded in the criminal pipeline. A good example of a mole is somebody who works at Western Union in Nigeria, because supposedly the employees are supposed to check IDs, but if there's a mole actually working in that Western Union store, then of course they could receive money and pay it out to anybody, regardless of who they physically were. That's an example of a mole. Another kind of a mole is someone who works in a bank in Ghana, for example. So money will come into an account at that bank, and then the mole will authorize transactions without regard to who it may happen to be receiving it. So in other words, they're also a facilitator like a mule, but they're directly aware of their participation and directly compensated by the scammer for that activity.
You know, it's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but back in the day when I first sent money via Western Union, I always wondered about the names of the people I was sending it to, because it didn't go to the name of the scammer. It was one of his friends, as he told me. And later on, so yeah, I can't even pronounce the names, but I hadn't thought of it as being a mole, because after the fact, when we were talking about Western Union, I was thinking, well, maybe the owners of the Western Union franchises are complicit, which is even bigger than a mole, but it makes sense that maybe one person working in there is part of it.
The nature of some of these networks, like Western Union specifically, is that Western Union will authorize agents, and the agent can be any kind of a business. So it could be legit, it could be a front for scammers. MoneyGram, on the other hand, tends to work directly with banks around the world. There's less possibility of the entire organization being a front, but moles are always a possibility.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's interesting.
Okay, so now we know what a mole is. Where are money mules recruited? They're typically recruited through romance scams, online job websites, social networking website, online classified, email spam, and dark web forums. And again, there are mules who are aware that they're participating in criminal activity, and there are mules who are not aware. They're unwitting accomplices. So who's at risk of becoming a mule? Ironically, the largest number of mules are college students who apply for work from home, online jobs, quick money kind of job advertisements. Those who are new to the country, immigrants who don't really know about both the legalities, what's normal, what's not normal, small business owners many times. We see these emails all the time. We're looking for an agent, we're looking for a partner. Would you consider being this? Elderly individuals, oftentimes introduced through being a romance scam victim. Recent retirees who are also looking for income opportunities, and again, really don't know what's real from not. Those that are unemployed, those that are looking for a relationship, get lured into romance scams. And when the money runs out, or if they didn't have much to begin with, they can be converted to mules. Those with memory loss, those who are borderline Alzheimer or dementia oftentimes get pulled into scams and then doing things on behalf of criminals. But the reality is anyone, anywhere, anytime could become a mule. How can you tell if you are a mule? Well, it's as simple as, did you receive something from someone you don't personally know? That's pretty much all there is to it. If you got money or parcels or goods from somebody that you don't personally, physically know, odds are it's part of a money mule process, a criminal activity. You may be a money mule if you've been involved in an online relationship and you were asked to receive money or other assets from the other person that you're in the relationship with. Most of the time, that's someone that you do not personally know. The money goes directly into your financial accounts or comes as checks for you to deposit. Now, this is different than a fake check scam. A fake check scam is usually a work from home kind of thing that people get sucked into, and they're asked to, well, we're going to send you a cashier's check, deposit it, and then forward it on to this person so that we can evaluate the entire end-to-end process and you keep a percentage of it. Typically, victims do get cashier's checks, or they get sometimes personal checks that they'll deposit into their account, and then they'll be asked to send the money on, usually without keeping any portion of it. If you share your account access with a romantic partner, you're involved with an oil worker in Zimbabwe or a captain of a container vessel out of Norway, or a general that is in Afghanistan or Tajikistan or somewhere else in the world, and they don't have access to their account. If you actually share your account information with them, you've probably been converted into a mule. Or your online companion, whom you have never met in person, asks you to receive money and then forward these funds to one or more individuals that you don't know, such as they say they have a child in boarding school and they need you to pay for the tuition or send a gift or whatever it may happen to be. These are money mule activities. Fake jobs, not Steve Jobs, but jobs. If you receive an unsolicited email or contact over social media which promises easy money for little or no effort, you're probably being groomed to become a money mule. If the employer that has hired you communicates with or uses web-based services such as Gmail, Yahoo, Hotmail, Outlook, etc., instead of a regular business email address, it's probably a scam and you're probably headed to being a money mule. Or you are asked to open a bank account in your own name or in the name of a company you form to receive and transfer money. It's a money mule process. Scammers often ask, quote unquote, people that they hire for jobs to go online and form a corporation. They'll send them the money for that and then go ahead and create a bank account, which then can have money laundered through it. Money mule equals money laundering. As an employee, are you asked to receive funds in your bank account and then process or transfer the funds via wire transfer, ACH, mail, money service, such as Western Union or MoneyGram? Are you told to keep a portion of the money that you transfer? If that happens, you're a mule. Or your duties have no specific job description, but it's associated with the transfer of money or goods.
Transfer now also includes the cryptocurrency.
It can, though money mules are typically not as necessary in crypto scams, but if they find a person who's comfortable managing a crypto wallet or doing crypto transactions, and then they have other victims who are not, then they may have the money sent to the mule so that it then can be transferred into the crypto account.
Interesting.
So where does the money come from that money mules process, receive, and transfer? It comes from other victims, such as in romance scams, typically, but it could be a lotto scam. It could be a BEC, business email compromise, business scam. It could be any form of cybercrime. Or it comes from a criminal activity, and that could be drugs, human trafficking. It could even be terrorism, because the web of criminality worldwide is very much interconnected. Scammers, a portion of them, are directly connected to terrorist organizations, and many of these larger cartels are directly involved in other types of criminality. So, for example, the larger Nigerian scammer cartels are also involved in drug trafficking. They're involved in human trafficking as well, such as Nigerian women to Europe. So by being a mule, oftentimes you're involved in a web of larger criminal activities. So the criminals obtain money through various illegal acts and from other people. And what the criminals need is someone to move this money at their direction. In other words, to be a cog in their machine. Common criminal activities involving money mules include internet-enabled fraud, drug trafficking, human trafficking, extortion, and much more, as we talked about. Internet-enabled fraud includes business email compromise. This is where an employee in a company typically gets a message from, quote unquote, the CEO saying, hey, I need you to send this money to this person. It's an emergency, do it now. But it could also be invoice fraud, etc. Online job scams, work from home scams, romance scams, mystery shopper scams. 99 and 7 decimal places of all of those are going to be scams. Advanced fee frauds or schemes. This is typically where, hi, I'm lawyer Bob Smith representing Omar Gaddafi's descendants, and I have $4 million in a box and I want to send that box to you. It could also be reshipping scams. A good example of that is stolen credit cards are used to buy merchandise, say from Amazon. It's sent to the mule's address, and then they send it to a forwarder who will then transship it to the scammers. So the retailer, the merchant, they only know that they delivered it to your address when it turns out to be a fraud or a scam. Grandparent scams, we all know what these are. It's where you get a call in the middle of the night and your grandchild or nephew says, I'm in jail, I've been arrested, I'm in this emergency or that, and I need money immediately. Please don't tell my parents, do this now for me, go to MoneyGram, go to the Walmart store, etc. Lottery scams, many lotto scams, which originate, say, in Latin America or Jamaica, they'll have the money sent to a mule, so it's not obviously coming from the Caribbean. IRS or law enforcement impersonation scams, that could be, you didn't show up for jury duty and we're going to come and arrest you unless you pay $200 now. The IRS, Social Security, or your Social Security income is going to be turned off unless you pay this fine, whatever. Technical support scams. Somebody says you got a virus on your computer, install this software now and send us $500 in gift cards or by Western Union. And general credit card fraud, where scammers will buy stolen credit cards on the dark web, and oftentimes they will have the ability to do a cash withdrawal into another account or through a merchant or something of this nature. Many times credit card frauds take place where they will have converted a small business into being a mule, and they will make an arrangement with the business to buy a product at an inflated price and then have a portion of the proceeds sent back to them. It can be very complicated, but these are just an example of some of them. So money mules are vital to criminals. What do you do if you're a money mule? So here are the basic steps. What to do if you're a money mule, if you believe that you are a money mule. Stop all communication with the suspended criminals. Not one word more, not one message, not one phone call. Stop it all. Stop transferring money or any other items of value. If you got $10,000 sitting in your account, don't send it, don't forward it, leave it there for the moment. If you received packages or parcels, don't ship them on. Maintain all of your receipts, contact information, relevant communications from the criminals. Immediately speak with a criminal defense attorney. Why an attorney? Because you've broken the law. A money mule may be involved in violating a dozen or more federal statutes. It's important to talk with an attorney immediately about the situation. They can help you do what's necessary. The next thing that you will do is notify law enforcement immediately. Now, consequences. Even if you're innocent, there may be consequences. Just like there is with a romance scam or any other type of fraudulent activity, you may be the victim, but there may be consequences. In this particular case, the consequences can be very real and very serious. If you do not report the crime, if you decide to just go silent, eventually someone will report your involvement because you got the packages or you got the money from someone else. They know who you are. And when they report it, your name will go into their criminal report. The police will show up at your door eventually. You can be arrested for multiple serious felonies. Your property and your bank accounts can be seized, depending upon which country you're in. For example, if you're in Ireland, the Criminal Assets Bureau can seize your house. If any of the money that you received ended up being to pay a utility bill or a mortgage payment, your house can be seized and you can be convicted and go to prison. This is serious stuff. Even if you report the crime and you are not prosecuted, you may still have significant liability. The source of the money, in other words, other victims, can still sue you even if you're not subject to criminal prosecution. Criminal defenses may not work in civil court with lawsuits. In other words, you may be innocent because you were unaware that you were committing a crime and you were of diminished capacity, unwitting, whatever. But in a civil court, a lawsuit takes a completely different approach to proof. That's why you need an attorney. Now I'm going to play a video here that demonstrates our point. Debbie, please tell me if you cannot hear the audio.
Okay.
My name is Glenda and I'm 81 years old. In 2014, I met the love of my life online, and he told me that he was a U.S. citizen and was working in Nigeria. He asked me for money to help with his business and help leave Nigeria. Then my love had people send me electronics like cell phones so I could pawn them and send him the money. When I couldn't get the money that he wanted, he asked me to open personal and business bank accounts. Since 2015, bank employees, local police officers, and federal agents told me that my love was a scam and that I needed to stop or I could go to jail. I didn't listen to anyone else but my love, the love I've never seen nor spoken to. Now I don't have a choice of whom I'll listen to. On November the 2nd, 2021, I pled guilty to 2 federal felonies. I'll be listening to the judge now.
So, remember, you were, in almost all cases, expertly manipulated into becoming a mule. But that doesn't help you if you don't do the right things. And as you saw in that video, the failure to listen and the failure to properly report can have quite serious consequences. It's tragic, but this is the reality of the world that we live in. Remember, a legitimate company will not ask you to use your own bank account to transfer their money. Do not accept any job offers asking you to do this. Be wary when an employer asks you to form a company in order to open up a new bank account. Never give your financial details to someone you do not know and trust, especially if you met them online. Be wary when job advertisements are poorly written with grammatical errors and spelling mistakes. Be suspicious when boyfriend, girlfriend, partner you met on a dating website, social media, or wherever wants to use your bank account for receiving and forwarding money. Conduct online searches to verify and corroborate any questionable information provided to you. I would argue, forget the word questionable. Verify every word that's told to you. Ask the employer, can you send me a copy of their license or permit to conduct business in your country or state? They have to have a business license. They have to be permitted to operate where you're located. And that's verifiable through the state, province, or country. So how can you tell for sure? Truth is, your judgment is flawed because you were manipulated and believing the scammers. Talk to someone else. Friends and family make a great sounding board to tell you, and their detectors are usually quite good. So another way is SCARS publishes a large number of articles describing all of these processes that are available on our Romance Scams Now website. This link would take you to our Money Mule money laundering article catalog, which will explain all of these processes and how it works. You have to do the research to know for sure. If you're dealing with someone who sent you photos, their photos may be on our online photo galleries, but remember, there are literally billions of fake profiles and accounts online. We have a little over 1 million photos. The odds are, well, literally 2,000 to 1 that they're not going to be there. So just because you can't find a photo is not proof that they're not a scammer. After you discover that you're a money mule, talk to an attorney. You must do this for your own safety and protection. First, talk with a criminal defense attorney. Do not withhold any information. Plan with your attorney how and when to talk to the police about your involvement. you would be wise to go to the police with your attorney who can advise you on what and how to present the information. Follow their advice to the letter. We cannot give you legal advice. Your attorney can and will, but you have to find one. This may not be free, but this is one of the consequences of becoming a money mule, and you cannot ignore or hide from this. Over 4,000 money mules were arrested in Europe last year, hundreds here in the United States and worldwide. Some mules face the same penalties as the scammers themselves. If you're a money mule, you must report this. They will find you eventually. Also, by reporting, you're helping to save other victims by shutting down that pipeline of money. Every report matters. Police may not chase after the scammers, but the reports help the government to extradite them eventually. Reporting also restores your power and control after having been powerless to the scammer. It helps you accept that you are the victim and not to blame. Where to report? First thing, get prepared. Take a look at our victims checklist for interacting with the police to help you organize your information. Report to your local police and get a report number. Again, talk to your attorney first. Report to your financial institutions and give them the report number. Report to your national police or the FBI at ic3.gov. Report to the Federal Trade Commission at the link shown. You can also report to the SCARS Global Network at anyscam.com. Keep the evidence. You may need it later. This could be years before you know that the matter is not going to be prosecuted. Additionally, you may be sued depending upon what the statute of limitations are in your state, province, or country. You might be sued 3 or 4 years later. Keep the evidence. Also, SCARS publishes a complete organizer to collect all of the information and evidence about your crime. This makes it easy to share with the police. Costs $9.99. It will help you get organized, but you can use our checklist on our website for free. But the point being, get yourself organized. It's also important to use the right terminology when talking to your attorney, when talking to the police, when talking with others. Don't use the word scam. This is fraud, pure and simple. Use the word criminal, not a scammer. Those are minimizing words. And remember, don't be hard on yourself or you're giving others permission to blame you too. You may have been an unwitting victim in this whole process. You're probably not to blame. So feel no shame, but do take action to resolve this and put an end to it. SCARS also publishes a guide for friends and families so that they can better understand. It is something that you can just give them to read. It's also available on our SCARS store. Cost is $9.95. It becomes a very easy way to help others really understand how these scams and manipulation work. Most of these crimes involve impersonation. So remember, avoid talking with strangers online. Verify everything. Never respond to their demands immediately. Always ask family and friends for their opinions and listen to them and report every scam. After this is all done, you may be very traumatized. We're here to help you. We offer do-it-yourself recovery and real professionally managed victim support groups. We also recommend that you see a trauma counselor or a therapist. Particularly as a mule, having a history working with a trauma counselor or therapist might be another avenue of defense for you, but we can't give you legal advice. So be careful who you believe out there. We now live in a world full of digital fakes, where the internet and social media is full of misinformation, disinformation, urban legends, doctored images and data. The need for awareness of the risks is greater than ever before. Be careful who you trust. There are amateurs, vigilantes, and instant saviors out there all over the place. They are not experts. We are. We, our affiliates, our partners, which includes the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, the Federal Trade Commission. We're also registered with the Department of Justice. We're SCARS. We are the global experts. So be proud of yourself. If you've gone through all of this, you've worked with an attorney, you reported the crime and ended it. Now let the focus be on the rest of the work that needs to get done. That includes you, your recovery from this crime. Remember that we have additional books available at our online store, including our Do-It-Yourself Self-Help Recovery Guide, our victims' journals, and much more, including workbooks that you can use for self-assessment. They're available at shop.againstscams.org. We hear you. We're the Society of Citizens Against Relationship Scams. We have 31 years of continuous experience on our team. We've helped more than 7 million scam victims, and nearly 12,000 scam victims have gone through our SCARS recovery and support programs. If you're able, please help. We are a nonprofit based in Miami, Florida. We do have offices in Monterrey, Nuevo León, Mexico, but we need your help to provide free services that we can offer to scam victims worldwide. Please donate. It's quick and easy. As little as $10 or $15 make a difference. Your gift can help us offer more services to more scam victims. You can donate at donate.againstscams.org. So remember who we are. You're welcome to verify who we are, that we are in fact an incorporated nonprofit. Look us up on the State of Florida website if you wish. And remember to report all scams to the FTC and to anyscam.com. Please don't listen to scams. Learn and avoid. And you can learn much, much more at romancescamsnow.com. We'll have another webinar next Saturday. So at this point, are there any questions that any of you may have for us? Let's go back to myself and Debbie. So what—
Can I add a couple of things before we get into questions?
Sure.
I've had victims contact me over the years, and it was interesting that mules has become more of a hot topic than when I got scammed 10 years ago. But the very first time I was very much made aware of this was I had a private detective, private investigator locally contact me, and she had heard about my story, and she said, there's a woman that called me to locate a woman that's local to us. And we met for lunch. It was very interesting to me what this woman had been doing. She had been sending money to another lady here in Florida. And so the investigator went and checked it out, from afar, and then went and knocked on the woman's door, couldn't get in, couldn't get any further. But, at that point,
the mule,
she knocked on the mule's door. No one answered. And so she kind of backed off from that because she just felt like there may be not anything she could do. So that was the first time I'd heard about mules and private investigators looking for them. The second was when we had another victim send in a copy of a check of a victim that we knew. And so we knew now that the first person who we'd become fairly close to had been drawn in again as a money mule and wasn't accepting that she was doing that, basically left us. Okay, so that was the second time, and I was like, do you realize how did a copy of your check get sent to another woman? well, I don't know. I'm like, okay, so a little denial there on her participation in that. The next one was I had a woman call me and say, she knew my story, and she said, I need to see you. I said, why? And she came over and she showed me a check that had been deposited into her bank account. That was a state welfare check from the state of Arizona made out to somebody else. She didn't understand that, but what she did understand is that her scammer called her and said, I want you, when that money gets in there, I want you to go and withdraw it and go buy Bitcoin and send it to me. Well, this woman didn't understand that, but she did it. She followed the guy's direction. And then she's like, now she's scared. She doesn't want her son to know what happened. She can't talk to him about it. This is during the pandemic. She comes to me, I look at it, I say, first thing we need to do is contact the police, which was very difficult during the pandemic because there were no police offices open. So we were able to put a report in online. But I said, you need to be proactive here and talk to the bank, because the bank knew there was something going on. They were going to freeze her accounts. I said, you need to show them your report because you are now complicit. This woman was on government services. You know, she got Social Security. She probably was on food stamps at that point. If the bank saw this big deposit into her account, that could blow her government service, you know, assistance, which she couldn't afford to lose her own government assistance.
She wouldn't have lost her own assistance, but by freezing the account, if it was electronically deposited, it means she would not have been able to receive the money timely.
Exactly. But it scared her to death. And she was just having health issues. I said, you need to talk to your son. You have to be honest about what's going on here because you live with him. He sees how this is affecting you. You cannot walk on eggshells about this one. You know, she was scared to death. So that was important because also the state of Arizona was going to come after her, withdraw that check.
So obviously the woman needs an attorney.
Absolutely.
And the reason that we recommend that they talk to an attorney first is to develop effective strategies, because how this is reported matters. How you communicate with financial institutions matters, because if the bank detects fraud, closes your account, you could be banned from ever having a checking account or a bank account again.
Correct.
So it's really important how these things are handled so that victims are protected as much as possible.
Correct.
Now,
thank you, Tim. There is a question here. What ended up happening to the lady in the video?
That was a matter between her and the court, and we haven't seen any final decision one way or another yet. She was convicted but not sentenced at the time that video was made, which was last fall.
But don't count on getting off.
The suspicion is that she would get a suspended sentence and possibly community service to do more videos. But
right.
It is possible she could actually do jail time. Now, someone in her situation, if they're arrested, they probably can't make bail, which means they might be in jail until the trial comes up, and that could be a year or more. This is deadly serious. So let's go back to something you talked about, and we're not going to name names, but we both are aware of a perfect example of what not to do if you're a money mule. So we had a victim that we thought was a romance scam victim come to us, join our support group, recovery program, stayed with us for many, many months. And all the while, it appears, was still communicating with the scammers. We don't know because we haven't seen the communication. All we know is a few months down the line, This person is asking other victims for money for loans. One of them gave her a loan. Then all of a sudden, another victim in another state all of a sudden shares with us that they're being scammed and they've been sent a check so that she can get the routing and the account number correct to send money to this account. And it turns out it was the account of this person who had been a member of our support group. Of course, we as an institution took appropriate actions to remove this person from services. And what we subsequently found out was, yes, she was working as a money mule many months after being a scam victim herself. What the psychology, the motivation, the impulse behind this is something that we don't fully know because we don't have any contact with her. We fulfilled our obligation of reporting the matter to the appropriate police authorities, but whether this was a case where she never fully accepted that she was a scam victim and that the person that she'd been talking to was not real, we don't know. Or whether because of the financial losses that she experienced, she threw away her morality and decided to work with a scammer so that she could make some money. We do know that when she got a refund from Western Union as part of the Western Union recovery program, restoration program, that she did repay the other victim. But truth is, we don't know who or how many people she borrowed money from, got money from, received money from. That's not our job. But this is a perfect example of an individual who could have serious civil liability and could be sued. Not our job to say whether or not the law allows it, doesn't allow it. You can sue anybody for any reason. But the reality is that if you don't stop this immediately, as soon as you suspect, if you don't take the proactive steps of contacting an attorney and getting this reported to the police, you may have no protections. You could be arrested, you could serve prison time. Now, let's talk for a moment, we have a little bit of time left, about one of our directors, Sharon Armstrong. Sharon was involved in a romance scam. She was enticed to go and visit her romantic partner from New Zealand to Argentina. When she arrived in Argentina, she was treated very strangely. And they gave her a new suitcase and then took her to the airport for her to fly back to New Zealand because supposedly there was a gift for someone in New Zealand, etc. And unwisely, instead of immediately going to the police at the airport and explaining everything that had just happened, she followed the scammer's instructions and was arrested by local customs. She spent 2 years in jail until she was able to convince the courts in Argentina that she was innocent. There are similar stories about a grandmother from Australia who did exactly the same thing, went from Australia to Cambodia and was sentenced to death. There was another grandmother from Australia, similar situation, both sentenced to death. Both spent many years in Southeast Asian prisons. Eventually, through coalitions that we contributed to, they were freed and allowed to return to Australia. To this day, there is a 70-something man in prison in Japan who was victim of a romance scam, an American, traveled to Japan to meet the person, was told to carry a suitcase back home that was full of drugs. He was arrested by the Japanese. He's in prison still there today. This happens all the time, every single day, literally. Some get caught, some do not. But if you've received money on behalf of the scammers, there are records. There's a paper trail. You will not get away with it. Now, unfortunately, a lot of millennials are applying for jobs. Sometimes it's secret shopper or process tester or whatever, where they're told that a parcel has been sent to somebody's address. They have to be there right after the FedEx or the UPS truck arrives. They grab the parcel off the porch, and then they send it to a transshipper. These are also crimes. And sometimes they knowingly participate because they're getting paid to do it. Unfortunately, this is the reality of this situation. Scammers can not only lure you into giving away your own money, they can lure you into committing other crimes on their behalf. And these are serious. Money laundering, wire fraud, sometimes theft, bank fraud, it goes on and on. So
ignorance is not a defense.
no.
But what I really encourage the survivors and the support group that is listening here, the friend that we had, the woman that we got to know fairly well that turned into a money mule, it was very distressing for me personally because she would have made an incredible advocate because of what she'd been through. But it shows me the value of sticking with the support groups and being completely honest at all times in your own recovery and being the advocate and not doing the one and done and saying, well, I'm a survivor, I'm fixed, and then go away. It's the constant, and I know it gets tiring sometimes, but it's so important to really solidify your recovery through participation and knowledge. Going back to Dr. Seuss, you know, the more you read, romancescamsnow.com, the more things you'll know. Every day I read something and I know something more than I knew before. I have those aha moments on, you know, what I can do better to protect myself and my family. The more you learn, the better you'll be and the more places you'll go. And the places I want to see you at is where we are right here, being the advocate for good. Because if we don't speak up, it's going to continue to happen. And our grandmothers, our daughters, our grandfathers, our fathers, whoever will end up in jail because they possibly unwittingly did something they thought was for good, i.e. accepting a package.
Maybe not end up in jail, but they could literally end up losing everything they have, because what happens if a victim who sent money to a mule decides to sue the mule? It's not just the money that was sent, but it's potentially punitive damages that could be millions because of the pain and suffering that was associated with this. This is serious stuff.
Serious. Mm-hmm.
And, you know, one of the great challenges that we confront, not only in our support groups with the victims that we help, but with society as a whole, is minimization and equivocation when we're talking about these situations. I'm very much a proponent of absolute brutal honesty. The truth will set you free. Without the truth, there's only fuzziness and fog and indecisiveness. If you equivocate in what you say and the way you think, it makes it harder to make real decisions that have moral, ethical, and legal impact on you. So it's very important not to equivocate. Something is either right or it's wrong. That sounds very simplistic, but that is in fact the truth of the world. That if you're doing something that's wrong, it's going to have consequences. Even if you get away with it, It's going to have consequences on the person who did the wrong. So be explicit, be honest, be open and direct in what you say and the way you think about these things. Being a mule, if you were unwitting, if you were lured in through manipulation, the scammers are expert at what they do. They can control your emotions and your acts, operative word, control. So you literally were in diminished capacity throughout the romance scam. What you did not of your own consent. It was done to you. That's important to remember. But once you discover the scam, it's also important to remember that that manipulation doesn't end at that moment. It will continue. And your judgment and decision-making will continue to be flawed. So at least have the sense to seek people out who know what they're doing. So an attorney, if you've been a mule, regardless, a trauma counselor or a therapist, and a professional support provider such as SCARS. Last word, Debbie?
No, thank you so much. For me, it's all beware and be aware and learn as much as you can. And if someone has a question and is afraid to go to an attorney or law enforcement right away, contact our support group. We will direct you there. Be assured, we will direct you there. And we can, hold your hand while you're doing it. We've done that. We've been to court. We've been to police departments. We will help. But it is serious business.
So remember, if you've been scammed, never let it happen again. Please note that SCARS is not a mental health care provider and does not provide counseling or therapy services. The statements or publications of our team are not intended to provide medical, legal, or financial advice. This is just a conversation between members. Any information provided or discussed is not intended to replace competent professional medical, legal, or financial advice. Consult a medical, psychological, legal, or financial professional before taking any actions or responding to any suggestions from others that include information provided by SCARS. Thank you for trusting us. Remember, we will have another webinar next Saturday. The information will be announced in our support group and in our social media and elsewhere. We look forward to hearing your questions and seeing you as a member of our audience. Thank you, Debbie.
Thanks, Dr. Tim. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. This presentation has been provided by the Society of Citizens Against Relationship Scams. This video is copyright 2022. Thank you for listening, everyone. This has been Dr. Tim McGuinness with my co-host, Debby Montgomery Johnson. And thank you and have an excellent weekend and stay safe, everyone, online. Bye-bye.
Bye now.